A reading from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 4. Such a large crowd gathered around Jesus that he got into a boat and began to teach them using many parables. Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is as if someone would scatter seed on the ground and would sleep and rise night and day, and the seed would sprout and grow, he does not know how. The earth produces of itself first the stalk, and then the head, then the full grain in the head. But when the grain is ripe, at once he goes in with his sickle, because the harvest has come." He also said, "With what can we compare the kingdom of God, or what parable will we use for it? It is like a mustard seed, which when sown upon the ground is the smallest of all the seeds on earth. Yet when it is sown, it grows up and becomes the greatest of all shrubs and puts forth large branches, so that the birds of the air can make nests in its shade." With many such parables he spoke the word to them as they were able to hear. He did not speak to them except in parables, but he explained everything in private to his disciples. I was hearing recently of how many people took up bird watching during lockdown. The initial silence, sadly a thing of the past, gave time to stand and stare, or maybe because of simple boredom, it drove people out to dig out their binoculars and to see how rich and diverse the natural world is. Birds play a strange part in chapter 4 of Mark's Gospel. The chapter begins with the parable of the sower. If you remember, the inefficient farmer scatters his seed and the first handful lands on the path and the birds sweep down and have a free lunch. Birds, the message appears to be, are shorthand for those who would easily lure people away from the kingdom. In short, birds are bad. Today we hear a bit more about this. Birds find a place in the mustard tree, which is more of an invasive bush as it happens. This time, birds make nests and appear to be welcome. Somehow, in a short space of time, birds transition from being sources of evil to welcome guests. What's going on? Before we get there, it might just be worth noting this, that parables are parables. They're not allegories of how life ought to be. They're not accurate descriptions of farming practices. They are not written in a code for which, if only we had the key, we could understand. They are triggers for conversation and wrestling with what it means to live in the kingdom. Well, back to birds. And this is guesswork, not gospel truth. Perhaps Mark is inviting us to think about groups of people we label difficult, awkward, or, like Jesus in last week's Gospel, mad or bad. Such people chip away at people of faith, pick them off, distract them, eat them for breakfast. These birds, however, are not beyond the kingdom, not outside grace, love, and the divine embrace. They're not easy, they're noisy, they flit to and fro, can't be organised, but maybe this is Mark's point. There is still a home for them in the kingdom, a place where they can find space and peace to make a nest, somewhere where they can meet Jesus. And our task is to provide such a home for them.